2 here with Nathan Powell. Nathan, good to have you back on.
Yeah, man. Great to be here still.
All right, so we were talking in the last episode about how you left Nusi, the SaaS that you started and did really well with for a number of years there, and then exited. You took like a 2-year plus hiatus from the internet as a whole, and you seem to resurface in my radar sometime, I think, in 2020 or 2021. You re-entered Twitter, but you started to explore new product ideas. It looks like new SaaS ideas. So.
Yeah, I realized that the money was running out from the exit. When I say exit, it sounds very grand. It wasn't that grand, obviously, but so you realize things are coming to an end, really, and like, what am I going to do? And so I tried to get back into consulting a bit, and obviously I'm still consulting, UX design, and I tried to get into several businesses, over the last from 20. So basically, when you said I reappeared, that was because I was trying to bring new things together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously it's been working. Like you have made several.
It's working. I don't know.
Well, my question is like, okay, so you first you make the decision to like re-enter the web industry, or like the digital product and whatever you want to call our industry. Did you know that you eventually wanted to make your way back to, let's say, a software product, or did you think like maybe you just want to do consulting for a while more seriously, or something else?
I
like
always
before you got into product ideas specifically, like was a product.
I knew I wanted to get back to SaaS because let's face it, SaaS is sweet. It's hard. It's if you heard in the previous episode, it is hard because if you get to that plateau and you can't get past it, then what do you do? But at the same time, there is just something beautiful about SaaS because once you get it working, once it's going, you have a solid business for potentially many years. So I knew that I wanted to go back to that.
It's really cool because it's so hard to both start and get early customers and to grow and sustain. It's almost like, why do we kill ourselves on trying to build a SaaS? It's so damn hard, but it is also like so great, and so it's incredibly valuable, and if it works, right? And it's actually fun. I find that the challenge is really fun to work on,
Well, and I think especially at the beginning, because those challenges are incredibly fun because you're still hugely passionate about the idea and about the potential solution that you're bringing to your customers. So I definitely did want to get back to SaaS, but for some reason it just seemed far off. I thought it's okay, I've still got time. So what I'll do is I'll try and get some kind of design service-based businesses together, And I did actually in the last couple of years, and I think that was pretty much when I resurfaced. I tried to build service businesses around design, and as you probably remember, like 3 years ago, there was like an explosion of all-you-can-eat design services. And so I thought, well, I'll niche down on one of those, So I did try and niche down on and working with businesses that were trying to do good things in the world, people who were trying to do working with the environment and things like that. And I just couldn't get any of them to kick off. I tried one with YouTube, I tried one with video editing, I tried one with design, and I just came to the conclusion that I suck at service products. So I don't know what about those products, it doesn't work for me, but something about me doesn't allow me to work within the confines of the service. So I just realized I've got to get back to SaaS. I've got to get back to product. I think I'm pretty good at it. Even when I haven't been working on my own products, I've been working UX on client SaaS. So I thought I've got to get back to it. And thankfully I am nearly there.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about that. I mean, okay. So you are being kind of public about feature flows, right? Like, about that, right?
I've jumped on the build in public hashtag.
So I want to dig into this idea, featureflux.com, that you're just getting off the ground. But before we even get into that, like, were there other SaaS ideas that you started to explore? Like, take us through like the exploration process for you.
This is essentially, obviously, how it stands now has already changed considerably over the final months. But funnily enough, it only really came from one prior idea, instead of going through 100 ideas. It was I work exclusively in UX design now. I haven't touched UI for years, thankfully. I realized my strong side was UX, and that's where I'm happiest. So I was talking to a product manager friend, and I'm a big fan of Balsamic just because it's so quick and so simple, and you're never going to mistake it for anything else other than what it is.
It's a great product.
I love a
wireframe.
Frame. That's it.
Yeah, it's such a great product over the years, and it's great because of its constraints.
I think I'm probably faster in Balsamic than I am in pen and paper. So as soon as I want to get anything down, I go straight into Balsamic. And I don't know, I'm sure Peldy would disagree with me because I have no idea what the numbers are. I get the impression that there's not that much love anymore in the younger, should I say, UX designers. I feel they all tend to drift towards Figma, and like nothing exciting has happened there recently, or these other huge products, maybe XD and stuff. But I love it. It's my go-to tool. But incidentally, as you said, those limitations, they do frustrate me every now and again because I work in it quite a lot. In fact, I'm probably in Balsamic more than I'm in Figma. So those limitations will begin to frustrate me. And I was talking to this product manager, and I said, well, what about something that was similar, but that was had these things that annoy me, And he was like, well, that sounds kind of nuts to me, building wireframing software. And he just got talking about part of the process, because obviously I work with different areas of product teams now, being exclusively UX. And one thing that came up was there seems to be a gap. Something that exists for developers doesn't seem to exist for designers, and that's kind of version control. And gathering feedback both internally and from non-technical people outside of the product team.
It's so true. Version control. I mean, version control in dev for me is Git and GitHub, and
everyone accepts that.
Yeah, we have branches. We can merge back in. I can collaborate with all my developers. But version control in all of my design work is 1,000 folders. One named like V1, then V2, then V2 final, then V2 final for real this time, and then V2 like, oh my god, it's a total mess.
It's crazy, and the strange thing is, and the thing that I started digging into this, and the thing that scared me most about this space was that this doesn't exist. This product, there's nothing that exists that takes care of this specific product, this specific problem. There are pieces of software that skate around the edges, like something like Zeppelin, for example, could be taken again from the developer's perspective, which is bringing in design files from Figma and then letting developers take all their measurements and stuff and blah, blah, blah. But there's nothing, again, from the design, marketing and sales teams, in all the research I've done, and believe me, I've done considerable amounts of research the last few months, sales and marketing teams don't want to be digging into Figma presentations and giving comments. They're not happy in that technical space. If it's an internal thing, where it is just the product team, then Figma's great. Like, let's share and let's talk and let's discuss. But there are other aspects of the eternal question is in the product team. So is this the final? So is this where we are now? Is this the one we're working off? And as you know, like in Figma, there's no way to actually lock something off. I mean, you could lock a set of screens or something, but there's nothing that exists to say within the entire product team, not just the designer's files. Okay, team, this is where we are. This is the final now. Why doesn't this exist? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just personally starting to see the use cases for what you're building with Feature Flux, because I've been solo. Like, all of my design work has been completely solo, right? Like, even though I have a team of developers and marketing people, like, most of that stuff we're already in the browser when we're collaborating in code. So any kind of design work that I ever do is mostly just for myself, just to give myself like either a rough wireframe, a rough creative direction on how this interface is going to come together, and then pretty quickly I'll jump into code and start designing in the browser. And so like my use of Figma and Balsamic is like really, really basic. Just like it doesn't have to be pretty because I'm not going to show it to anyone except for myself. It's just for my, so I don't do all the fancy like components and like interactive mock-ups or anything like that. Like I just don't need to, it's faster for me to just go straight into code. Right.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see, I start to see some of the other use cases. Like for myself right now, I'm actually designing a bunch of new features in Zip Message that normally at this point I would already move into code and hashing out issues with the developers. But now I have a couple of really big new features that I need to show to our customer base, like select customers to get their feedback on it before we start building. And so for that, I actually am creating more detailed mock-ups in Figma than I normally would, just for the fact that they need to be presentable so that I could explain what we're going to be building.
Yeah, completely.
And like that's one. And then I could see like other teams, have other stakeholders, like showing design files, not just to the developers, but to, like you said, like the marketing and sales people, potential prospects and things like that. And then I was talking to my friend Rich Stats, who runs Secret Stash, which is they're a development agency. They are a WordPress development shop, and they work with design agencies. And
I think that's where the secret sauce is going to be, is with development agencies and design agencies.
He was totally telling me like design agencies who deal with clients, like they have to create super slick mock-ups and presentations before it goes into development. Like less because they need to hand off to developers, more because they need to present it to the client and say like, this is what we're going to build. Are we on the same page? Right.
Yeah, and there are workarounds, obviously, because product teams are doing workarounds now, every single one of them. But even software that tries to tackle the problem, like sort of InVision and Miro and all that stuff, they've all become whiteboard software. So anything you input into the system is you just dump a bunch of screens onto one large whiteboard, and then you go from there. But as you know, if you design software screen by screen, like an interaction takes place screen by screen. Yep. Which is why I'm going in that direction. I don't want to see a whiteboard with I don't want to see Figma. I don't want to see a whiteboard with like 30 screens. I want to see screen by screen.
It almost like shouldn't be completely interactive where anyone can dive in and slide the canvas around. It's like, screen by screen, because to me, it's also about like screen by screen to guide my verbal presentation, right? Like, first, let me show you this, and here's what we're looking at. Okay, now I showed you that. Now let's move on to screen number 2. Here are the key points to know about screen number 2. Let's get your feedback. Now we move on. Like for the other person, whether it's a client or a stakeholder or a customer you're trying to get feedback from, it's not a functional app yet. You're not asking them to use it. You just want them to look at it and tell me what you think. Right?
Yeah, and totally. And then being able to create the versions based off of that, and then close that design and say, the feedback we got, that's it. That's done, that's dusted. And then that's kept as a record then, because you can, working with versioning, you can say, okay, that's the final version. Or you can go back to previous versions and say, why did we make that decision? Documentation in product teams is huge, and it's a pain in the ass for everyone. Like I said, it had worried me that nothing like this exists, but I'm getting more and more feedback. So I have a prototype out now that I'm testing with product managers, and the feedback I'm getting is great. So
I wanted to ask you about that. So what are your next steps? Like, so we have this idea. You see there's sort of like an opportunity in the market. At least you think there is. So where do you go from there? Like, what kind of research and prototype?
Yeah, so I've been talking to as many product managers as I can the last few months, and the last week or so, and then this coming week as well. Hopefully this will be the final week where I'm doing customer development, at least for this initial stage. I'll be testing this prototype that I put together based off of all the feedback. Because primarily,
a lot of people don't do this really well. So like, how did you go about finding product managers, and how did you reach out?
I'm being far more cautious than I ever was with Nusi. Like I said, I think in the previous episode, everyone I interviewed told me they would never use Nusi, and I did it anyway. It is not the case with Feature Flux. I have been looking at this for months, but the way I found product managers initially was the few I knew I reached out to personally. But then outside of that, I went into Facebook groups of product managers, And I started placing polls because it was the lowest point of resistance. You know, I didn't have to introduce myself or anything. I didn't have to, you know, again the shyness or whatever. So I just created polls, and I was asking if product managers had a design background or not. That was one poll. I think that got over 110 responses. And then
That's
of course
a really
you see all.
idea. I never thought of that.
Yeah, well, then you see all the people who have responded because you created the poll. So then I went and contacted all of those people. I say, hey, I see you don't have a design background, blah, blah, blah. And I would do that again on LinkedIn. And then, of course, LinkedIn is easier in that response, in that respect, because then you can then reach out to everyone they know. So I just made a
just the fact that there are Facebook groups where product managers hang out, and same thing.
Product managers,
like that's a good sign in itself. That like,
they are, they are huge communities, product managers, and they're very vocal. They're very passionate. They are.
It's easy to reach them online. Like
they're easy to reach. Yeah. So you only have to go into LinkedIn or to Facebook, and they're incredibly passionate. They really are. In fact, I think it's probably one of the most passionate group of professionals that I found, even more so than designers. So that was how I initially got in touch and just started reaching out to people and said, you know, I'm thinking that something might be a little bit broken in the product design process, and you know.
And then you started talking to them, like you had some calls.
Yeah, well, actually, I initially just asked questions via text. The whole thing about not wanting to annoy people, not wanting to bother, and the more I spoke to a few people, the more I saw there was a bit more of a sort of, you know, we got on and stuff. So I just said to people, you know, would you be up to jumping on a call, and that was it. And from there, I was able to get all the questions out of the way. I mean, a big help, a huge help was Deploy Empathy by Michelle Hansen.
Yep.
That was a huge help for me because I think I would have missed a lot of things. And in fact, I read it quite late in the process, and I'm glad I did, because essentially I have only if you're watching the video you can see this, but I have my questions listed out for the interviews.
So anyway, like, where are you now with like Feature Flux? Like, you said that you're doing a prototype. Like, are you working with a developer, or what does that look like?
No, the prototype is literally just a clickable prototype at the moment. And now I think literally just this week I've decided that, I want this to go ahead. And I want to try and get something coded up that I can get in front of people and see if there is really interest. You know, you'll never really know until you have that piece of code out there.
That's so true. You know, I have tried the, I've done a ton of, I got it wrong because there are buses here. But I've done a ton of like pre-selling and interviews and stuff, but nothing beats actually getting the product in front of them.
Yeah, completely. And that's what's been so scary about the whole thing, because I know I have to go to this final stage to see whether it's all going to be worth it.
Well, we will get everything linked up in the show notes. Nathan, this was awesome connecting with you again. We'll have to get you back on here to give us the update. But
all right, definitely, man. Cheers, man.